Black British Dynasties in Music, a family affair. In conversation with Haile and Kassa.
Generational talent, people that have set the soundscape for everything good that we hear. A lot of influence, a lot of forerunning, groundbreaking, ground shaking. Can I get from the both of you, please? Hello, my name is, and I am.
Hi, my name is Progression, or Kassa. I'm a producer, songwriter from London.
Yo, my name is Haile, and I'm a singer-songwriter, producer, West London.
What would you say you guys' introduction to music was?
So we come from like a long line of, like, our whole family's musicians. It's like all my uncles are musicians. All my cousins can do music, but they don't necessarily all do music, but they can do music. And then it goes all the way back to like my great grandparents.
Yeah, give me that.
So like, basically, from what I know, my great grandparents were part of the church, but my great grandmother was a jazz pianist, and she was blind. So my dad used to always take her to church and take her to these different places or whatever, which is how he got into like introduced into music.
So your dad's grandmother? My
dad's grandmother. Then my dad's mom was played piano in the church as well, and my granddad was a choir conductor, and he also played steel pan in Guyana. So my dad started off playing like steel pan and stuff with his brothers, then progressed to start playing bass and then guitar and loads of different other instruments. Kind of started off playing like gospel and jazz, toured a lot of like the French-speaking West Indian islands, then went to Paris, saw Bob Marley, embraced Rasta, started making a lot more reggae music, and then spent like between the 70s and the late 90s, early 2000s touring with like all of the top Jamaican reggae artists from around the world, playing with everyone around the world, everywhere, to be honest with you. So like we kind of come up in a house full of music. Couldn't really escape that one. I was always kind of in music. So like as far back as I can personally remember, I've always wanted to do music. I've never had like nothing else that I wanted to do throughout my life, me personally. So that's kind of where the music comes from.
Did your parents move to UK?
My dad moved to the UK. My mum was born here, but went back to Grenada when she was 8 and came back when she was 18. So her mother tongue's Grenadian, like she's a full Grenadian woman, really. But like, yeah, my mum was born here and my dad came here from Guyana.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, in the house, what's being played? Like, what were your first favourite artists?
First favourite artist? Wow. First favourite artist.
Or first you remember. First artist you remember, or first favourite?
Probably like Busta Rhymes. Brandy. Nas. Yeah, that kind of era still.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as I got older, I got into grime. Started listening to like Wiley, J2K, JME, Sket, all of the man them. That's kind of as I explored my own music when I was in secondary school, like seeing other people's favourites that I adapted to as well. And then after that, I started rolling with my stepsister a lot, and that's when I started listening to like dancehall. I used to go to like dancehall parties at a really young age, like 13.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, is it?
I'm bringing it upstairs.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna bring it down.
Yeah, it should be cool.
Okay, cool.
I'll take it back.
Alright, cool.
You just shut that for me.
Yeah.
So dance tours when you was 13?
Yeah, I was going to dance when I was young, 13, from like raves in Peckham to raves in Church Road.
Where were you? Yeah, where were you guys living?
Always living here.
Always okay.
Always in West London. So I was going to like parties and traveling that's when I kind of understood the dancehall culture, and that's when I kind of got the passion for that. And then my cousin had some African friends that used to listen to Afrobeats all the time, and it was a genre that I never really heard of at that time. So I knew it was good, but I just didn't know any artists and stuff from that kind of way. And then yeah, I guess there's a fusion of all of the things that I used to listen to that got put into the music that I create now. So.
Okay, Bruce, what about you? Who are your
So me, obviously my dad was playing a lot of reggae and soul and funk and jazz and all kinds of stuff when I was younger. So from my dad, when I was really, really young, I guess my first artist that I really loved was like Michael Jackson and Bob Marley. They were like huge, larger than life, and I heard that music in my house. And then when I got a bit older, my older sister used to listen to a lot of R&B, so I got into like Usher and Brandy and Drew Hill and all those type of artists. And then I would listen to hip hop, so everybody from like DMX and Nas and Busta Rhymes. So my brother probably heard me playing those things when he was growing up. You understand? And then like obviously when I went to secondary school, I just started exploring loads of different other things. Like I used to, well, just to take it back a bit. So when I was really young, when I was about 7, I was in a music group with my cousins Angel and his 2 sisters and his brother, and we were like musical youth meets Jackson 5. It was managed by Smiley Culture, and we used to like our music was like a mixture of like reggae and R&B soul. So like we were listening to a lot of those different things that was kind of coming up in our houses or whatever. And as I got older, I got into more things on my own. Then when I was probably about 17, I started doing like playing live for other bands or whatever. I met loads of other musicians, started getting into like jazz and like listening to Robert Glasper and Esperanza Spalding and loads of different artists that were coming up around that kind of time as well. And yeah, like all of that type of stuff, I guess you can hear in the different production I make for different people. So working with Tiana Major 9, for example, she's big on jazz. So that's kind of where I got to express some of that. The dancehall stuff that I would hear in my house, or the reggae stuff I'd hear in my house is what you'd hear in Western. And then the R&B stuff you'd hear in Angel. And do you know what I mean? It was just like a bunch of different things that I was doing you could kind of hear in the music that
What did you do in the group? Would you play in...
So I was singing and playing. I was singing and playing bass, as a matter of fact. And then kind of as that disbanded, I kind of naturally progressed into production when I was about 14. So in this same house, my dad used to have a studio the whole time as well. So when I was younger, I always had access to like a studio in my house. So I learned how to produce like crazy young. And I was like using Cubase on Atari systems from like I was 11, 10 and all that kind of stuff. So
what's the age difference between them?
8 years.
8 years. Okay, so when you're learning to produce and stuff, you're still young.
Yeah,
like
that literally just born basically. Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 years.
Okay, then cool. So you're both so it's good to start with you. When did you start working then, or would you say you've always been working?
So the funny thing is, we got our first record deal when I was 13. I was signed to Warner, and we were signed to this guy called Mickey D, who signed like Cleopatra, Shola Amma, Glamour Kid, Mark Morrison. It was that kind of era of black music in the UK. So we were one of the next groups to go. The label done a joint venture with London Records, and it became overstaffed. So our A&R got fired. We got a new A&R. Anyway, that whole situation disbanded, and we kind of kept on doing music or whatever. So I was kind of doing it professionally mad young anyway, but I guess like doing it professionally as somebody that's like taking control of my own destiny from probably about the age of like 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Haile, for you, from going from them rigs when you was 13, 14, what were you seeing your brother do at that time, actually?
He was working a lot with Angel. Doing a lot of production, writing with Angel. I wasn't into music at that point at all. I liked it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't something that I'd done as a profession. I was into like athletics.
Okay.
And then I started training in the stadium and doing a lot of running and stuff. And then when I started college, I started producing, started making beats. And then I started engineering as well. Like my friends would be rapping and stuff, and they'll come and I'd record their vocals and stuff, and I just play with little buttons and stuff and just learn the program. And I guess that's how I learned how to produce, obviously looking at Cass as well. And then after that, I started rolling with Akel, who was working on a mixtape with myself that I'd done like most of the production on. And then that's kind of where I got my passion from, and the music thing became a bit more serious. I was probably 18.
Okay.
And then I met Louis through Akel, who had a feature on the project that we was doing together. And then that's kind of how the whole Western thing started. Yeah.
What year were we looking at there?
I'd say
2012, 2013.
yeah, 2012, 2013, yeah.
And are you active by this point?
Yeah. 2012, I was already doing
Yeah.
loads of stuff, yeah.
Okay, what was your first, say that was Heile's first sort of, or not break at that point, but what was your first, like...
breakthrough moment?
Yeah.
So I would say, funny enough, I signed a publishing deal, myself, Angel, and another writer called Vicky. We have a collective called Parallel. And we signed a publishing deal to Universal in like 09 or 08.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 09 or 010, we wrote a song with Roll Deep called Green Light that went number 1.
Mm.
And that was my first like official moment. Obviously I'd been doing music and I'd done like I toured, I'd done very different things, but in terms of like an actual, like reputable moment, I guess that was probably one of the first things that I could remember.
Was that the biggest check to date?
No,
it wasn't. At that time, it wasn't the biggest check to date.
Oh, well, at that point?
Time, yeah.
No, it actually wasn't, because I had a record deal as an artist prior to that when I was 13. So that when I was young. So that check was probably the biggest check at that point.
Yeah.
And then obviously that was probably the biggest check as an older person that could spend my own money, and I'm moving like an older person at that point. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so when did you start seeing that Heile's getting into music? What were you doing at the time when you started seeing?
I always knew Haile was musical,
obviously,
because I'd lived with him or whatever. But he wasn't. I was like, it was a bit weird for me, because for me, that's like tradition, innit? I look at my dad. I just was doing music. I'm expecting him to just naturally do music because I do music. But I knew he loved music, but I didn't see him doing anything in music until him and Akel started doing sessions, but they would always do it when I'm not home. So I'd come home and I'd see all of these files on my computer that I didn't make, and it had to be them. And one day I came home early from a session and they were mid-recording. And that's when I kind of knew, okay, cool. He wants to do this music thing.
Were you hiding it, or was you just timing-wise? That's when
if he was home, then I can't use the studio, you know what I mean? I didn't have my own studio, so we would only be able to use it when he was gone, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then where are we in the timeline? Timeline, green light, you're with Akel at this time? Akel at this time. What happens next in both of your stories and journeys?
Was it wonderful?
So Angel gets signed to Island Records. Obviously me and Angel's been making music together forever, from the beginning. So I'm working with Angel across all of his projects. We're putting out all this music. Ride Out comes out. That's doing a madness. And then we have Wonderful. And that was like a real career, proud moment as well, because like, obviously my career and Angel's career has been running parallel for the whole of our life. Mm-hmm. So that moment where we've been able to have a breakthrough together with him as an artist and me as a producer was like a monumental moment for us. And it was like a really, really the sonic of the song was really pushing boundaries at that time for a black male singer. There wasn't really anybody doing anything like that, and it's been revered as a song that people like really reference as like it really changed the sonic of what you're allowed to be as a black male R&B singer and how you're allowed to express yourself. So that's something that was like a big moment for both of us. And doing that album and just that whole run of like all the music that we put out prior, because he put out like maybe 6 mixtapes, and he was like one of the first R&B singers in this country to be functioning like a rapper, in the sense that he was doing mixtapes, he was working with Gigs and Scorcher and Wretch 32 and all the rappers that were happening over here. So it was like it was a different, interesting time, because we were going against the grain a lot in terms of the sonic that we were doing, the ideas that we had, the rollout, the marketing, everything was quite different in comparison to what people had seen before from like Lamar or Tyre Cruz or Craig David. Do you know what I mean? It was a slightly different, probably closer to Craig David because he came through Garage and whatnot. But yeah, that was like a new thing.
I want to ask you what that moment was like in a minute, but for Haile, what was it like for you watching that? What's your recollections of that time?
I was still in school at the time when this was all happening, so obviously everyone knew that they was associated to myself, so everything was just going off, and it happened in such a short space of time. It was a lot to take in, but it was just going with the flow. But it was a sick moment, man, because I saw the process
from before,
from the beginning, so it was sick, man, proper.
How many siblings do you guys have?
So in this house, as in same mum, same dad, there's 3 of us.
Okay.
But there's 9 siblings in total.
Okay. Everyone involved in music or?
Not really. Like I guess all of them have a love for music to some degree, but we're the only ones that's actually actively doing music.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that Haile moment, what was the landscape like at then? What sort of clubs are you going to? Where are people partying? What's playing in the parties?
It's so interesting, because I'll get to this in a minute, but basically when we were doing what was considered urban music then is not what's considered urban music now. There was a level of compromise that had to be made. It was a new landscape in the sense that there wasn't a reference or a blueprint that we could work to. Mm-hmm. We were all just trying things for the first time, but we were really ambitious. So parallel as a team, we had production, we had a live band, we had styling. We were moving like an actual fully fledged label, and we were like bringing the product to the label for them to just bring to market, because everything from the band to the photography to the music videos, everything was being done in-house. So we were like mad ambitious in terms of getting our ideas out and what it looks like, and then going to shows. And like, for instance, when Angel first done Wireless, that festival was more bands. It wasn't urban at all. There was like loads of bands, and then you might have Jay-Z headlining, but you would have the little small, I don't know if it was a Pepsi stage or the O2 stage at the time or whatever, that would have a couple urban acts that would have like Tinchy Strider, Angel, N-Dubs, etc., Chip, whatever. But the main event was bands, really. Yeah. Or you would have to be a very, very like successful rapper to be able to do the main stage. So seeing how things have progressed from now to then is very different from the clubs we were going to, what was being played in the clubs, what was considered hip-hop, what was considered what rappers were doing to be successful in terms of the compromises they were making sonically, and everything was a bit different. And it's like, looking in hindsight, these are the things that we've had to do to make it okay for this next generation. Because like even now producing for Western, it's liberating, because I could just make music with them that I think sick without thinking, is this going to work on radio? We're just making the music. But when I was making music with Angel, there was still an element of, we still need to kind of hold back a little bit and not go, even though we were still keeping it as authentic as you could at the time, there was still an element of, this needs to still work on Capital and still needs to work on Radio 1 and blah, 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 blah. So it's interesting to see how that's progressed and like how we've got to this point.
Was that before Tinchy and N-Dubs had their time?
It was around the same kind of time, or on the tail end. So like Tinchy and N-Dubs had it was more around Tiny's time.
Tiny's, okay.
Yeah, it was around Tiny's time.
All right. So then for you, Haile, let's move that forward a little bit. you link up with Akel and Louis, you're doing the first project that you work on. What happens next for you?
So we released Into.
Also, it gets into quite... Yeah, so you said that was 18 when you...
Yeah, I was like 18, 19 at the time. This was the first tune that me, Louis, and Akel did was Into. That was the first ever record we did as a trio. And I think that was like end of 2014, 2015. And at the time, everyone in the neighborhood just had it on their phones. Like it wasn't anything that was out there like that. And then more people just started getting it, and Rashid from Link Up TV reached out to us, and he was like, I want to shoot the video. And we literally shot it in my garden just back there. A couple of friends, family. Shot the video, and then we put the video out on Link Up TV, and literally within the first 2 weeks or week of the video being out, it's just going crazy. It was a sound that wasn't birthed at the time, so it was different and it caught everyone's attention. And then we had like all the record labels just reaching out to us, from Sony to Virgin to Universal to Atlantic, everyone, Warner. And it just came to this place where we went, like, I had zero experience in the music industry, so I was literally just going with the flow. Long story short, we linked up with Twin, and we ended up going with Atlantic, and then we re-released the tune properly, shot a new video and stuff, and then it was all over radio. It was touring everywhere. We performed in like Wembley Stadium at the Summertime Ball. And then it actually became a big record the following year.
So after you've done all of that?
After all of that, the following year, 2016, is when it actually reached its peak.
Wow.
And then after that, we started working on a project, a mixtape, which was Western Season 1. And we just literally just released that for our fans. And then off the back of that, we done our first headline show at the O2 Islington. And then fast forward, we started to kind of add the culture to the music a bit more. And then we released songs like Texting, Ben Over, Shana, Love Struck, all those kind of songs, when we kind of tapped into our backgrounds. Like, I'm from Grenada and Guyana. Akel's Grenadian, Louis Jamaican. So we kind of just tapped in more to the culture, and I guess when we done that, it kind of shifted the Western sound, but not the feeling of what you get when you hear Western.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at now, just at a more evolved space.
Of that.
Yeah.
Like I asked Haile, what was it like for you, PRGRSHN, seeing them have that moment? What were you making at the time? Who you working with? And how involved are you guys together at that time?
So it's crazy because like at the time when we made Into, we were just making it because it was just a sick song, and there was no barometer of how successful we wanted it to be or nothing to do. That was just like, this is a sick vibe and we're just doing it. So it's interesting because it's like, it just was like the same feeling I had with Angel, where it's like fulfilling and liberating to see, right, I've seen this from the embryo, like the beginning stages, and seeing it's reached to the highest of heights with my family and my people, do you know what I mean? And in an uncompromising way this time as well. Like not compromising at all, literally just making us organic and natural and authentic. And it's like being able to be part of that process with them throughout all of the music that they've put out has been just like, it's a proud moment, and it's something to be proud of, because, you know, like you're able to, like, even with what he was saying about like the feeling that you get with the music, I guess the sound of the music now just gives Western a bit more identity. But in terms of what you feel and what's associated with Western, the same barbecue, good vibes, whatever that you felt when you listened to Into runs concurrent with Texting, runs concurrent with Be My Guest. With any song that you play, it's still got that same energy. And I feel like it was just, we just zoomed in and tapped into what we bring to the table, and just understanding how to just do that all the time.
And when did you start working together for the first time?
Into
for you guys was the first time working. How do you have that conversation? Like, do you come out like, yeah, look, we're ready, let's get. How does that conversation happen?
Well, he was already making beats for Akel as well.
Okay.
Before I was, so it kind of just naturally happened.
It was just organic.
Yeah.
I don't even think there was a conversation.
Yeah.
It was just happening. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like, alright, cool. Music needs to be made. You make music. We make music. Let's make music. Do you know what I mean? It was never a conversation like that. Yeah.
That's so crazy to hear, man. Just like when you get to hear the story behind the music, it's so different. I think I was at One Extra Live. I don't know if that was one of your first performances.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you remember One Extra Live in Leeds?
Yeah.
I was there.
And even like my journey of Into was on student radio. That was the song that was playing in the daytime. And like, before then, I just had an Afrobeats and Caribbean, Afrobeats and dancehall show in the evening. But then it's like, it can even affect my career in the fact that, I can speak about this in as much as what else was being played and whatnot. So Into's happening. Who else are you working with at the time?
At the time, I'm working with Wretch 32. I'm working with... who else was that? Basically, all the artists that was out at that time I was basically working with around that time.
What some of the songs you had at that time?
So, like, for Wretch 32, I did Black and White, the intro for his album. I had a song called Never Be Me, and another song called... Every time people ask me this, I always forget. What else did I have going on? Do you know what? Let me get my... Like, even via Angel, I worked with, like, Wizkid and Burna Boy, like, 10 years ago, 6 years ago. Stormzy was on one of Angel's early mixtapes. Like, loads of people, like, pretty much everyone that's out now. Tiny Temper, Chip, everyone. Like, we was doing a bunch of different things across, like, everything. It was just, like...
When does music take you abroad for the first time?
Me or Haile?
Both of you, like you're different.
Took me abroad straight away.
The jump.
Into straight away.
Do you remember the first place you went to? Like your first
first place I went to, I think was Ibiza.
Okay.
I think it was Ibiza. And it was just a good vibe, man. Yeah. Good energy, I was young, so I was just enjoying life. Literally.
Did you deep what was going on, or it was just a natural part?
It took very long. For me, I was literally going through the flow for ages. I never actually had a moment to sit down and think about what's actually happening.
We'll get to that moment.
Yeah.
For me, me and Angel did a writing trip when we were both about 16 or 17. Wow. We went to Denmark. And we did a mad writing trip with Richard Castillo. He used to manage us at the time. And we went to Denmark and did all these songs when we was in Denmark, which was really dope. We was like 17.
Who was it with, or was it just like...
It was just us as like producers and writers. We just... Because at the time he was managing us and he was just like, they've got a sick like R&B kind of thing going on in Scandinavia, so we should go to Denmark. And there was a bunch of these like sick producers over there that were doing like R&B for like a lot of the American artists and stuff, like Cutfather and Joe. They had produced like a lot of Pussycat Dolls and Return of the Mac for Mark Morrison and like a bunch of different things. So we just went over there to like connect with a bunch of them and just write and produce and do a bunch of things over there. So that was like one of my first, in terms of leaving the country to do music. Yeah.
And what about working with artists overseas for the both of you? What are your early experiences of that?
First one for me was Kalani actually jumped on the remix of Into. I remember she came over to London and she came over to there. She was signed to Atlantic as well, but the US one, but she came over to the UK office and Twin invited us over and she never heard the song before. And then we linked up with her and her manager David and we were just chilling whatever. And then she was playing us her records and Louis and Akel actually know Kalani from like, I think Vine was happening at the time. I never knew who she was.
Yeah.
So they were already like fans of her music, and then we played her into, and then she started shazamming it. And then she, later on in the day, we went to a Puma event with her, and then she was like, oh, she wants to do the remix, and it was just organic, and she loved the record, and we've just been cool ever since, man.
Nice. Yeah. So did she like record and send to you, or did you get to?
At the time, I think she had her headline show, and yeah, she was just so busy at the time, and so was we. So when she got back to LA, I think that was the first thing that she cut, and then she sent it to us straight away. Man.
And then you got that out.
Yeah.
So what about you working with overseas?
Wow. With an overseas artist, yeah?
Yeah, artist, yeah.
Wow. You know, that was a long time ago now. Who did I work with overseas first? I'm gonna say it could be like probably Wizkid. He had a song with Angel called Blown Away that we did in like, it could be even before that, but this is what I could remember right now. Like 2009, he came over here and he was with the Disturbing London lot. And I remember Dumi brought him to the studio and we played him the song and he was like, oh, I love this song so much. And he just recorded it on the spot there straight away. And then we did, he came back and we did some more to it a couple of months later, just before we were getting the record ready. But that was one of the first ones I could remember from that time. Because I was like, my two managers were Nigerian at the time, and Vicky used to write with us was Nigerian, so we were proper tapped into like Afrobeat. Yeah. So we had worked with Iyaya, Wizkid, Burna Boy, Shay, like loads of different artists from time ago, like early on, Malik Berry, all of that. So yeah, that's probably the one I can remember right now.
How do you guys balance, like moving away from music a little bit, how do you balance family life whilst everything is not work orientated, but you work together, so like your work is your life, but then you're also brothers, like how do you balance that, or how have you?
Just because we live in the same household, it's not really that difficult because you're kind of around your family by default. So if you're not doing music, then you're just chilling, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And also, I don't really ever look at the music like work like that.
Okay.
Like, I don't think, oh, time to go in the studio. It's never like that. It's just like, we're just recording. It's just organic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's never, unless there's like a deadline or something. But apart from that, the making of the music is simple. And because he can record down here, sometimes I might be doing something, send it down, he'll do it, bring it up, whatever. It's just fluid. Do you know what I mean? We don't necessarily think of it like that.
What have been some of the harder parts of your journeys that you both got to witness on each other, and like how have you both navigated it through / helped each other and stuff like that?
So when I was really young, when I had the first record deal, that was probably the first music business experience I've ever had. And there was a point where we went through a bit of hardship and like the labels, we got dropped essentially. And when we got dropped, there was a bunch of money missing and all this kind of stuff. And it was like mad disappointing for me because I was like, you know, when you're 12, 13 years old, this is seeming like your life is about to change and everything's on the up. So you sign a record deal, you're now around all of these artists that's popping, you're working on these big producers, songwriters, studios, blah, blah, blah. So we're doing all this stuff and it just comes to a stop. And it's just, that's it, it's finished. Like, obviously, as an adult, you can navigate because you know there is a life outside of that. Yeah. But as a child, that is your life. So it's for like all of my year 8 in school, I was on tour.
Wow.
I was on tour. So like, I was getting accustomed to this lifestyle and it just stopped. So then when that happened, I kind of like had a bad taste for the artist thing because I just thought it was very unforgivable. It was like, there was no like compassion or no, do you know what I mean? It was just like, all right, I used to be with you every day and now I'm not, and that's just the end of that. Move on, get on with your life. So I think that's part of the thing that kind of pushed me into production because it was a way of me still being part of the creative process heavily, but not ever having to deal with that level of disappointment again. that was one of my first experiences of like something in the music industry that made me see a side of it that I never knew existed before it happened.
Yeah. So when Haile's going through all them label talks and what are you thinking?
I'm just trying to make sure that we navigate it correctly and we're not making those same mistakes that I made when I was younger. Also, I'm taking into consideration it's a new day, it's a new time. Everything's different. Do you know what I mean? Like even simply from the music I was making 5 years before that to being able to make that with them now has changed. Do you know what I mean? So just really trying to like navigate through that whole process and making sure that we just like set ourselves up in a way where we minimize the opportunity for any disappointment or anything to go wrong.
What about you, Haile? What have been any of the challenges?
Do you know what it is? I feel like when we done Into, that was a whole new sound and everything was going so sick. And then as the sound shifted, I felt like everyone that was part of the team didn't really know how to market that kind of sound. So even though it was true to us, because they didn't know how to execute it, and it changed quite a lot from a borderline poppy song to a proper dancehall tune. It was like they didn't really know how to work those records. So for a little while, we was in a space where we just had to do everything ourselves. Because even though we was signed to a record label, they didn't really know how to work those kind of records. And because of that like in the UK territory, it kind of put us in a weird place where we were perceived a bit differently from where we was. So it was almost like starting again. So for example, like even with texting, how we worked that record, like we done like loads of dub plates for like key DJs in the UK, in Jamaica, in New York, in Miami, around the Caribbean, just around Europe. And then what we did is we had like a guy from Jamaica that we would pay to print out like some CDs and sell them on the street, get posters, put them out. Like we was literally doing it all ourselves because it was almost like freestyling though and hoping for the best, because we have never done that before either, but we was just told that that was the way a tune like that would get big. So we just tried our luck and hoped for the best, and luckily it started to bubble up in those territories and then
come back.
And then we kind of just repeated that formula with certain tunes, and then before you know it was back on our feet. And when Ben Over came, it was just like a no-brainer. And then it was just like a domino effect from there.
That's it. Yeah. Do you guys get to go back to the Caribbean often?
Here and there, we try to when we can. The last time I was in the Caribbean was April. I went to Grenada.
Nice.
My first show there.
How did that feel?
That was sick. It was such a sick experience because the last time I was there, I was really young. So to go back there and see everything and it looks the same, but just on the terms that you're actually performing, was like a sick experience. So
did you get to, both of you, did you get to go back earlier or no? So like into the Israeli.
So I didn't know. Did I go to Grenada since Into? I haven't been to Grenada since Into, no. I haven't been to Grenada since Into. I used to go every year as a child. And then I got to an age where I didn't go as much before. But then in between then I've been Jamaica, I've been other places and whatever. Yeah. But like we was in Jamaica in 2018. I was in Jamaica in June. We've been to different places, obviously. Yeah. When we went in 2018, it was interesting because since Texting had been a hit in Jamaica, we had not been there. So
you got to go and see.
We got to go and see it, and then I was speaking to one guy who he's a photographer and a videographer, and he was like, he films and takes pictures at all of the big Jamaican events and all the big dancehall artists or whatever, and he was like, texting is a rhythm that you play in the dance in the middle when you're playing like Vibes Cartel. When you're playing the big tunes, that's when that tune gets played. It's not like a lukewarm tune. It's like people know that rhythm properly. So it was interesting to just hear that, because it's like, obviously from stats on YouTube and stuff, you could see people like the song, but it's not the same as when you go there and experience it for yourself. Do you know what I mean? So it
Did
was
you
just...
get the same feeling of when you was going to the dancing parties when you was 13? When you go and it's
Oh, 100%. It was mad. It's actually, I've never thought of it like that, but literally the same. Because there's tunes that I grew up listening to in those dancehall raves that were going off then, that's still going off now, and they're playing next to my records. So it was mad to see that and know that my tune is standing with those tunes, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's sick, man. Alkaline was on.
Yeah,
Okay. Another big tune, but so many, man. There's so many good that That's wicked. All right, so let's go from 2018 to today. It's gonna be a weird sort of question, but in the most recent part of your careers, what have you learnt the most?
To be patient and to just stay true to yourself. And I know that sounds generic, but it's like one thing I can stand on throughout my whole career is I've always tried to keep as authentic and be myself throughout the whole process as much as possible. Because of the things I experienced when I was really young, it reminded me that just know why you're doing it, and eventually you're going to keep chipping away until you get to that point, innit? And sometimes, obviously, you get wary. Sometimes it's tiring and it's frustrating and all the rest of it. But I feel like, even just looking at Western now, for instance, I feel like they're in their best shape now. I feel like they're making their best music. They understand their talents the best. They're delivering at the highest level that they've ever delivered. And that's by just staying authentic, because it's easy to just look around you and see what other people are doing and just try and join into what they're doing. So for me as a producer, like, I always see everything that's going on, and I'm working on so much things all the time. And I always just encourage everybody to just have patience and just be you all the way through the whole process, because your destiny and your journey is always going to be different from everybody else's. And you have to just understand that and just trust the process.
And for you, what have you learnt the most of late?
Yeah, I guess you just have to have tunnel vision and really know your purpose. And once you know that, then you got your own lane, so it doesn't even matter what anyone else is doing. As long as you see the light at the end of that tunnel, then you will get there, as long as you're consistent with what you're doing, you know what I mean?
So we talk about the early success. What, again, more recently, what are the things you're most proud of more recently? I know you mentioned Western, but let's say songs-wise, what are the more recent ones that you've done that you're like, I could play this over and over again if I go back to it?
Western songs, yeah?
In general, or songs you've worked on, it could be any of the features as well.
Same Space by Tiana Major 9. That's a song I'm proud of. I'm proud of Be My Guest by Western.
There's so many in the catalogue.
There's loads of songs. Mama Stay, I'm proud of. Oh, there's like loads of songs, man. Yeah. Honestly, there's loads.
There's just a few.
Yeah.
Shana is one of my favourite Western records.
Western?
I think because of the time period when that song was made and where we was, we shot the video in Kenya. And the tune wasn't even out yet when we shot the video. We just came in to do a show, and the show was sick. It was a sick turnout. And off the back of the show, we shot the video, and then I guess that particular territory just kind of treasured us since we embraced their culture over there. And then when the video came out, it was like that even heightened a bit more.
What made you go to Kenya?
We had a show there.
Oh yeah, okay. So you had the show
there. So we had a show there. And we thought, let's just shoot a video out here. We've got a record that we need to shoot. That was on the tape. And shot the video, done the show, sick experience. And then, like I said, they treasured Western, like they were proper championing our thing. And then we came back to London, put out the project. And then they kind of embraced Western for ages. And we hadn't been back for a while to Kenya since then. But we knew the next show that we did in Kenya was going to be crazy, which was this year, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This year?
April, yeah.
Yeah, so we went back to Kenya in April, and it was pandemonium, like crazy. And when we done that song, it was mad. Like man felt like man was Michael Jackson. Crazy. Yeah.
So Shana's one of them for you.
Shana's one of them. Benno was one of them as well. Wonder Woman is one of them as well. Mama Stay. There's loads.
Yeah,
I can't even
yeah.
lie to you. There's loads. Yeah, man.
Have you know people now? You're like the hook god in the UK. Like, have you embraced that? Have you accepted that? Like, yeah, I know I'm cold at this.
Yeah, I've accepted that. I'm very good at what I do, and
Yeah.
I know how to get something out of me and give the people what I want. So I do embrace and appreciate that. I also acknowledge that there's still a lot more to learn, and there's still a long way to go to what I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know I'm going down that road. It's just about patience and waiting for the right time to do what I need to do. You know what I mean?
That's a nice one, actually. What do you both want to learn next? Like, what is motivating you? What's inspiring you? How do you want to progress in yourselves?
I watch anime a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and what tends to be a common factor in every anime that I watch is that the main character always has like multiple teachers that he learns different skills from, whether it's like a sensei or literally a teacher or whatever it is. I feel like on my journey, I always like adapt. I'm like a chameleon. I'm around something and I adapt to whatever that is, whether it's a culture, a sound, but I always add my own twist to it and take it as a skill and then add it to myself. So I feel like for me, it's just about experiencing more things, traveling, and with that information that I store, it would just add
so
to
the
myself.
next sensei.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So for me, it's just about like I'm open to learning more things and seeing and adapting and yeah.
So, what about you, Fisher? What's the next thing?
For me, I feel like again, same, like I've accepted that I have a skill as a producer and I'm able to make music at a high level, but for me that's like that just comes as part of what I do every single day. And for me it's more about, I've realized that one of my, I guess, superpowers is seeing something in someone else at an early stage and helping them develop that to a point where they can showcase it to the world, whether that be art or music or, do you know what I mean, whatever that is. And I just want to kind of embrace that more and get involved in, you know, bringing through the next generation of people that are going to be, you know, spearheading whatever it is, whatever next direction we're going in, and just like helping like develop and nurture the next generation of talent. That's something that I really want to like do as the next layer of my career.
Nice. And just to round off almost, I've been asking this question with everyone. What are the key lessons you've learned, whether it be in life, personal, music, everyday stuff, from each other and from each other's journeys?
That it's okay to be an individual, and whatever you are, just make sure you embrace it, because you never know that you could be a voice to a lot of people that want to be heard. You know what I mean? So if you have a platform that you could speak, whether that is music or whatever your talent is, then take advantage of it, because not everyone has that opportunity.
Just like patience and perseverance, man. It's like I've seen people go from like writing off their talent and what they are to celebrating them, and only time allows you to see that transition. I've seen people go from saying one hit wonder is never going to be this, blah blah blah, not as big as that, blah blah blah, and then watching time progress, and then you're a cornerstone and everybody sees you as an important figure. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it's just about being patient, having perseverance and understanding that this thing, the race is not for the swift, it's for who can endure. So I mean, everybody has a different journey and a different road that they're on, and you just got to know what you're doing and just stay true to that.